everybody. Welcome to Scott Fox After 9. Hope you had a great weekend. This is going to be a fun episode of the pod because I've got so much back and forth audio to play for you today. Right now, Prime Minister Mark Carney is overseas. He is doing a number of summits, and the President of the United States, Donald Trump, is on a similar circuit, although it doesn't look like their paths are going to cross. Donald Trump says he doesn't want to meet with Mark Carney anyway. Things are a little ugly right now, and it makes me wonder, how was Doug Ford's weekend? How do you think Premier Doug Ford spent this weekend knowing, and just the top line data here, I mean, I'm sure there's more to it, but at the moment, it seems that Doug Ford's decision to run that Ronald Reagan ad, not just in America, but to continue running it over this past weekend and during the World Series, seems to have really set back trade negotiations between Canada and the U.S. Do you think Doug Ford feels any responsibility for that? Or do you think he's loving every minute of this? On some level, he's got to love it. He's getting a lot of attention, and he, as the premier of a Canadian province, is being talked about by the global media. I have to think this was a great weekend for Doug Ford. I haven't talked to him or anybody that knows what he did this weekend, but I got to think this was a good weekend for him. And I'm going to circle back on that. I'm also going to play for you some audio from the various news conferences that have happened. President Trump and Prime Minister Carney both speaking to the media quite a bit over the last few days. Maybe you saw some of it on social. Maybe you heard some of it on the news. I'm going to try and go a little bit deeper in this episode so you are completely caught up and you know where everybody stands. Now, in addition to that, there's a couple other things that are going on in the world that I want to get on the pod here. First and foremost, I think everybody has got to keep the great people of Jamaica in their thoughts today. It's a Category 5 hurricane now. Hurricane Melissa barreling toward Jamaica, going south to north. They say right in the advisory from the National Oceanic Atmospheric Administration, it is going to be catastrophic damage because of this Category 5 hurricane. So if you've got friends or family in Jamaica, God, I hope that they are okay. I would think that with a hurricane coming, the hotels took all the precautions that they could. Did the airlines try and get people out? Not that I heard. Typically, they would in a situation like this, but I don't know that anybody expected this hurricane to get that intense as quickly as it did. So people that are in Jamaica today are stuck there. They're not going anywhere until the storm has passed. And I'm thinking about them because it is going to be one hell of a storm surge, crazy winds, and the winds, the rain. The rain in particular. Here, we'll get like a rainfall warning if we're going to get 40 to 50 millimeters of rain. In parts of Jamaica today, they're calling for between 500 and 750 millimeters of rain in one day. That's how catastrophic this hurricane is going to be. So to the folks in Jamaica, I'm thinking about you. For any Canadians that are down there, I'm still thinking about you as well. Tonight is Game 3 of the World Series. I've had a few American listeners of After 9 reach out to me over the last couple days just to find out what's going on in Canada. Are people happy? Are people excited? Is the people that are at the Dome that you see on TV during the games, are those the only people that are interested, or is this like a citywide thing? Let me answer that question right now and tell you it's not a citywide thing. It is a national-wide thing. The Blue Jays are Canada's baseball team. No two ways about it. They're Canada's team. And I think the whole country is into this. I'm hearing that people are spending ridiculous amounts of money just to get a Blue Jays jersey right now. Apparently at Rogers Center, where the Jays play, they were selling Vladimir Guerrero Jr. jerseys for over $500 this weekend. That's nuts, because it wasn't that long ago. You could go into a Sport Check or a Canadian Tire and get one for about $120. So the prices are nuts. Hotel rates are insane in Toronto right now, but that's not discouraging anybody. People are into it. It's a good vibe in Canada, and I think we need that because it's been such a negative news cycle for the last number of weeks, months, you name it. You know, I think it's just good for general nicety, you know? I mean, on a typical day in Toronto, you're probably not going to talk to the person sitting beside you on the subway or on the GO train or on the bus. Now, people are having full-blown conversations about the Blue Jays with strangers. It's really, really nice what's going on right now, and I'm here for it. So whatever happens tonight and the rest of this week, Either way, the Jays making it to the World Series has been a uniting thing for Canada. What is another interesting footnote about Canada, this got sent to me so many times over the weekend, and I'm here to tell you, you don't need to send it. I saw it. I know Justin Trudeau and Katy Perry are officially a couple now. They were out at the Crazy Horse, I think it was, a cabaret show in Paris on Saturday night, celebrating Katy's 41st birthday. Fun. Hopefully they had a great time. I know there's some people who think that Justin Trudeau is scum and they do not want to see him happy in any way. I don't understand that feeling of hate. I don't like Justin Trudeau either. If you listen to this podcast regularly, you know I do not like our former prime minister. But I think everybody deserves to be happy, and even though I think those are two weirdos, I'm happy that they're happy. If two weirdos found each other, good. Let them stick together and stay away from the rest of us. I don't want this to turn into a Travis and Taylor situation where they're thrown in our face all the time. In fact, I'm hoping that if this is what it seems like it is, divorced dad, middle-aged, and divorced mom, middle-aged, that found each other, two good-looking people in the prime of their life, and they want to spend some time together. If that's what this is, great. Now, if this is going to be some sort of a promo to try and promote Trudeau's son's music or something like that, well, then we can reevaluate. But for now, I don't understand the hate. Yeah, they went out together on a date in Paris. Fine, let them. They're both really rich. She probably flew her private jet. He flew his private jet. Everybody's having a good time together in Paris. Let them enjoy Paris in October. None of my business, and I don't care. Frankly, I care about what's going on in Canada right now. So the Trudeau, Katy Perry stuff, I'm not going to be talking about it too much here on the pod. If something interesting happens, maybe it'll come up, but you don't need to share the story with me. I've seen it. I know. Another thing, too, just before I get to the content from today, is I've had a hell of a lot of messages from staff and former staff at Kids Ability. That is an organization that helps out families and kids that have disabilities, whether it be physical, developmental. It helps out a lot of kids that are on the autism spectrum. And last week, they blew out a ton of employees. Just let them go randomly. Apparently, staff had no idea this was coming. The amount of staff that have reached out to me to tell me things like how much money management is making versus how little the hands-on employees were making that work front lines with kids who need help. It is crazy. Like, I've got so much information coming in, and I'm going to say for now, that's good. I got a lot to work with. I'm still trying to figure out what happened here. If you're one of the employees that was affected, thank you for reaching out, but I've got enough. You don't need to send me any more. I don't know what to tell you. I think it was a horrible decision, and it sounds like the way they let you go was disgusting. The fact that management stays on, frontline employees get let go, and they're blaming that on financial constraints, I don't understand it. I would have thought Kids Ability was doing fine with the amount of fundraising they do and the government funding they get. So I truly don't understand the decision to let so many people go, but I hear you. I hope you bounce back. In fact, I got to think that if you guys organize and open up your own business, you could probably do a lot better than Kids Ability. I would think you've got a lot of trained professionals there who are now out of a job. You've got a lot of families that need supports for their kids and can't get them now. I have to think that if you guys organize and open up your own business, you're probably going to do fairly well. But it doesn't take away the sting of what happened when you got let go at Kids Ability. And I'm sorry for you. I really, really am. I don't understand the decision. I wish there was something I could say to help you. And I'm going to keep looking into it. But as it is right now, I feel for you. You don't need to send me any more info. I got it. I got bombarded with it this weekend. And frankly, it's going to take me a while to sift through even that. So thank you, but you don't need to send me any more. I got it. I hear you. I'm thinking about you. And that's all I can do with that for now. Now let's jump into the content for this episode. And I'm going to start off with U.S. President Donald Trump, who's not in a very good mood about the situation with Canada right now.
Ronald Reagan loved tariffs. He used them sparingly, which he probably would make a mistake. He made a mistake in that. And again, I was the biggest fan of Ronald Reagan, but on finance, on trade, it wasn't his strong suit. but he liked tariffs. And they totally changed that to say that he didn't, because they're catering to the Supreme Court. Because Canada's been ripping us off for a long time, and they're not going to rip us off anymore. Canada has been ripping us off for a long time.
Why?
One of the most difficult countries to deal with has been Canada. As much as I love Canada itself and the people of Canada, they've just had a lot of bad representatives. They did a fake ad yesterday. They were caught. The Ronald Reagan Foundation was the one that caught them, and it was totally the opposite of what they said. So I don't like that. That's dirty pool, and you can't do that. And let me just tell you, they shouldn't have done it. And they've apologized, and they said, we're going to take the ad down. Well, they did it, but they did it very late. They let it play for another 2 nights, and now they took that ad down. So I don't know when it's going to kick in. We'll see, but I don't really want to discuss it. Let's go.
Man, he is all over the place, isn't he? Let me see if I can sift through this and put a little bow on where we stand with that Ronald Reagan ad that the province of Ontario paid $75 million to American media to run. In a country where we are broke and we have no money for anything, we've got $75 million to run on U.S. television. That still shocks me, but that was a decision that Doug Ford made, and I guess he's allowed to make that decision, so that's on him. The ad that Canada or Ontario was airing in America did feature some of U.S. President Ronald Reagan. I sorted this out last week. I think it was Thursday's episode. If you want to go back and hear what we put in the ad versus what the full context of what the former president was saying. Donald Trump and Doug Ford both love Ronald Reagan. You can tell. They're both boomers. They loved Ronald Reagan. Most boomers do. Fine. Understood. I don't think what Donald Trump said there was all that accurate. No, I don't think Ronald Reagan loved tariffs. I think Ronald Reagan understood that tariffs were a tool that he could use. And if you listen to the whole context, the entire thing that Ronald Reagan said, he was talking about the need to use tariffs strategically in certain situations. He also made the case that the president should have the discretion to use tariffs if the president needs to. But what we put in that ad was not misleading. Yeah, the president, when he was doing his whole remarks in that radio address in 1987, he did more or less make a case for tariffs are bad. And that was the part that we used in the ad. And then he did go on to say, but there is certain circumstances where you should use them and the president should have discretion. We didn't use that part, but frankly, in a 1-minute ad and a 3-minute clip, it wasn't going to work anyway. I think the president is more angry at how effective it was. There's a lot of people, himself included, that really perk up when they hear that distinctive, iconic voice of Ronald Reagan. It was triggering for Trump. Now, he's suggesting that we're not running that ad to try and pressure the American people into pressuring their president to drop the tariffs. He's suggesting we're running that ad to try and influence the U.S. Supreme Court, who are going to be the next ones to make a decision on tariffs and whether or not Trump can continue doing this. So what Donald Trump is suggesting is that not only did they use the ad, he says out of context, I disagree. I think it was perfectly within context, more or less. It didn't capture everything that Reagan said, but the part that we used was fine. I didn't think it was that big a deal. The president is suggesting that Canada is interfering in U.S. politics. Let me flip it around. If we had a contentious issue here in Canada that the Americans had a strong opinion on, how would we feel about the U.S. government running ads on Canadian television to try and influence Canadian people? I have a feeling that it depends on who the president is, but if it was Donald Trump, Canadians would be livid if that was what was going on. And basically, that's where President Trump is coming from on this one. He says Canada is interfering in U.S. politics. Is it true? I guess only Doug Ford and Mark Carney know the answer to that. But either way, if the goal was to get their attention, we got it. Did we anticipate that that would end trade talks? I don't know if we did or not, but I said it when the ad came out. Doug Ford is poking the bear. He knows that Ronald Reagan will get to Donald Trump. He intentionally poked the bear, and now we're dealing with the consequences of it. It wasn't an accident. Nobody can say, oh, we didn't expect this to happen. We knew this would happen. This was part of the plan. They wanted to get Donald Trump's attention, and they were using Ronald Reagan to do it. Here is a little bit more of President Trump on Air Force One.
Your view on what Canada needs to do to get things back on track?
Canada lied. I mean, what they did was terrible. They made up a fake statement by President Reagan. Reagan was a big supporter of tariffs when needed, and we need tariffs for national security, and they totally turned it around because they're getting hurt by tariffs and we're gaining by tariffs. They've used tariffs on us when we had different presidents very successfully, and they've taken a lot of money out of our country, and now we're taking it all back. And so they went out and they made a fake commercial. The Reagan Foundation went crazy when they saw it because it was, the opposite. It was the opposite of what Ronald Reagan liked tariffs, and when necessary, he would use tariffs. And it's made us a very rich country. It's also made us, when they were used against us, it was not good for us. But we've used them very successfully. We have the highest stock market we've ever had. We have great national security. I've settled wars because of tariffs. And a president has the right to use tariffs, especially when it comes to national security. And we need it for national security, even including our own wealth and paying down debt and all of the other things. So, we're in very good shape with that. But they took a commercial saying the exact opposite, Canada. And so I'm very disappointed in Canada. They lied. I mean, it was a fraud what they did.
President Trump seems to be taking this personally. He seems to be very, very, very upset. Not just that we did an ad, not just that we used former President Ronald Reagan in the ad, but that we kept the ad going this weekend, even after we knew Trump was pissed. And we let it air during the World Series, which had more eyes on it than anything else this weekend. We aired the ad during the World Series, and that is what is angering Donald Trump here. Now, maybe there is more damage done. I don't know if Doug could have seen that coming either. He said he would take the ad down after it aired this weekend. Why not right away? I don't understand that. I mean, if the goal was to get Trump's attention, to try and get him to re-engage, to try and speed up this trade negotiation, okay, you knew he saw the ad. We knew that last week. In fact, Trump said he'd probably take the same ad. But then when the Reagan Foundation went nuts, Trump went nuts. And then, even after he went nuts, when we said, okay, sorry you went nuts, we're going to keep this ad running for just 2 more days and let a whole bunch of more people see it during the World Series. That might have been a gross miscalculation. And you're going to hear from Prime Minister Mark Carney responding to that coming up. First off, Trump is talking a lot. Here's more of him on Air Force One.
Let me just tell you, they shouldn't have done it. They've apologized, and they said, we're going to take the ad down. Well, they did it, but they did it very late. They let it play for another 2 nights, and now they took that ad down. So I don't know when it's going to kick in. We'll see, but I don't really want to discuss it. Let's go.
Mr. President, can I just add, this is an ad, that was an ad run by a provincial government in Canada. Why are you mad at the federal government?
Because whether it's provincial or Canada itself, they all knew exactly what the ad was. The Prime Minister knew, everybody knew. The Prime Minister knew what the ad was before it went.
Will you see him at APEC? Do you want to meet with him?
I don't want to meet with him. No, I'm not going to be meeting with him for a while. No, I'm very happy with the deal we have right now with Canada. We're going to let it ride.
Yikes. He's happy with the way things are now, and he's going to let it ride. Doesn't even want to meet with Prime Minister Carney. Doesn't even want to meet with him. Here's one of the things that I'm wondering. When President Trump, in that tweet or whatever it was that came out late Thursday night, early Friday morning, when he said he was ending trade negotiations with Canada because of that ad that featured Ronald Reagan, do you think Mark Carney and Doug Ford understood how serious the president was or how angry the president was? Because I'm not sure that they did. You know, it was one thing to run the ad. It was another thing to keep it going, even after Trump made it clear he was not happy. To air that this weekend during the World Series cost taxpayers here a ton of money, and it really seems to have infuriated President Trump. He's not the only one, though. Listen to this from this weekend on NBC News.
Major trade issue, which is Canada, of course. This week, President Trump abruptly broke off trade talks with Canada and put another 10% tariff on Canada in response to an ad that the government of Ontario ran. It features former President Ronald Reagan. Why is the president setting trade policy based on a television ad he doesn't like?
Well, Kristen, let's think about this. This is a kind of propaganda against U.S. citizens. It's psyops. Why would the government of Ontario? I'm told that they have spent or were planning to spend up to $75 million on these ads to come across the U.S. border. So what was the purpose of that other than to sway public opinion? And it's some kind of propaganda that the premier of Ontario unilaterally launched.
Will the 10% tariffs apply to all Canadian goods, Mr. Secretary?
Kristen, I've been traveling since this unfortunate event happened. I know that the ad's been taken down. So, we'll have to see. But I just think it was terrible judgment by this premier, who has a bit of a reputation for being a hothead.
Does the president know if the tariffs will apply to 10% tariffs will apply to all Canadian goods? Has he made a determination about that?
Well, I'm sure he knows, and I'm sure the Ambassador Greer knows. But again, we're here out in Asia, and we're doing these big trade deals out in Asia. We just signed the Malaysian deal today, which was fantastic. And I've been spending the past 2 days negotiating with the Chinese. So whatever is going on back in North America, I think is taking second fiddle to President Trump's leadership out here in the Pacific.
Okay.
That is the U.S. Treasury Secretary, Scott Bessent. That's the U.S. Treasury Secretary saying Ontario Premier Doug Ford has a reputation for being a bit of a hothead. Trump is mad. The U.S. government is mad. And are we taking it seriously? Because we did run the ad during the World Series, and we probably shouldn't have done that. That seems to be a major irritant. Plus, Mark Carney kind of made light of it this weekend. He did various media appearances. I'm going to play just a little bit of one of the news conferences he did in Malaysia. Listen to him joking about it.
Nuclear, a few days ago, I launched with my good friend, Premier Ford. Did I say good friend, Premier Ford? I said the always entertaining, the always interesting, the always unpredictable Premier Ford. Yeah, God, sorry. I don't know why I mixed the two up, President and Premier Ford. Is that on, by the way? No.
Mark Carney launching into a bit of a comedy routine there. President Ford. Why would you say that? My good friend, Doug Ford. Here's my theory, and I put this out there last week. The theory is this. Doug Ford and Mark Carney want to poke the bear. They do not want peaceful relations with Donald Trump because Mark Carney is probably 50-50 right now on calling an election very, very soon. And we all know Mark Carney and Doug Ford in particular understand better than anybody the ticket to getting reelected is to convince boomers in particular that Donald Trump is a threat and they're trying to protect Canada. They're trying to save Canada. Do you see it that way? Because I don't. Trump's mad and Trump's allowed to feel how he feels. I used the example earlier. If the U.S. government were running television commercials in Canada to try and influence the Canadian people about any particular issue, would you have an issue with that? Because I think a lot of Canadians would. If I'm being honest, they would. So we've established that whether he's right or not about the context of the Ronald Reagan radio address and how it was used in the commercial, he wanted it off. We ran it for 2 extra days. He's mad. And there was Mark Carney laughing and joking, like literally trying to get a rise out of reporters. President Ford, my good friend, Doug Ford. And then not the least of which, if there's any person on earth that Donald Trump hates more than Doug Ford right now, It's probably the governor of California, Gavin Newsom. He calls him Gavin Newscum. Gavin Newsom is kind of like America's Justin Trudeau. Very, very, very similar ideology, very similar paths. Donald Trump does not like Gavin Newsom. So what does Doug Ford do on Friday? He puts out a video with Gavin Newsom. Now, in fairness, Doug Ford is the premier of Ontario. Gavin Newsom is the governor of California. And you've got the Blue Jays from Ontario taking on the LA Dodgers from California in the World Series. So they did a little bet. If you didn't see that, it's really, really, really cheesy.
Hi, Governor Newsom. It's official. The Blue Jays are heading to the World Series to take on your Los Angeles Dodgers.
That's right, Premier. Two great teams, two proud places. Sounds like a perfect time for a friendly wager.
Okay, Governor, you're on. If the Blue Jays win, I'll send you some of Ontario's finest maple syrup in a proper tin can, the way it's meant to be enjoyed. The tariff might cost me a few extra bucks at the border these days, but it'll be worth it for a Jays win.
That's a sweet offer, Premier, but something tells me that syrup is staying north of the border when the Dodgers win. And when they do, I'll send you a bottle of California's championship-worthy wine. And hey, can you do me a favor? Think you can put it on the liquor store shelves?
I don't think so, buddy. Talk to your friend in the Oval Office. I can't wait for the Jays to bring it home. Either way, it's a win-win. Great neighbors, great friends, and a little cross-border competition.
Well, couldn't agree more. Here's to great baseball and some friendly bragging rights.
Go Jays.
As a lifelong San Francisco Giants fan, go Dodgers. Here's to a great World Series and a tariff-free friendship between Ontario and California.
Okay, let's recap here. Let's recap. So, we knew it would get a rise out of Donald Trump if we put out that Ronald Reagan ad, and we did it. And Trump saw it, and he said he saw it, and he said he'd probably take that ad himself. Then the Reagan Foundation goes nuts and says that's not what he was saying in that whole clip. So Donald Trump wants the ad taken down. We said, okay, sure, we'll take it down. But in 2 days, after it runs a couple more times during the World Series and millions more eyes are on it. Okay. And then Mark Carney did that little comedy routine that I played for you just a few minutes ago, talking about how he and Doug Ford are best buddies, basically. And he even referred to Ford as President Ford as a Freudian slip. Then Doug goes out and does a video with Trump's mortal enemy, Gavin Newsom, betting on the World Series. I don't know if they understand how angry President Trump is here, but President Trump seems like he has very, very little patience for Canada. And I've already played the clip. He does not want to meet with Mark Carney. Trade negotiations are suspended indefinitely, and he's quite content to leave things the way they are, with tariffs on, and who knows when it comes to renegotiating the Canada-USA-Mexico agreement. I don't even know if that's in the cards now. Is he acting presidential? Debatable. Was he triggered and he's using his presidential authority to take it out on the people he doesn't like? Yeah, it kind of seems that way. But he's the president and he can do that. Let's hear now from Prime Minister Mark Carney. He is overseas right now, and the topic of this commercial and trade came up a lot. Before I get to that, though, just a little bit of his intro. I believe this is him at the ASEAN Summit.
You know, from our perspective, a highly productive few days at the ASEAN Summit here in Kuala Lumpur. I've been joined by a delegation, including our Minister of International Trade, and we have focused on building new partnerships and unlocking new economic opportunities that will benefit Canadian workers and their businesses.
Okay, this is still very much his stump speech. We hear this all the time. I'm here and I'm making deals and they're going to benefit the Canadian workers. Will they? I don't know. I've seen leaders go overseas dozens and dozens and dozens of times in my lifetime, and not very often can I say, oh, because of that meeting that they went to, my life is better. I don't think I can really ever remember hearing someone say that. I don't think I've ever said that. Oh, because you went and racked up a major bar bill and a huge carbon footprint flying around the world with the media, staying in 5-star hotels and eating at Michelin star restaurants and really getting treated like a king. Because you did that, my life is better. Have you ever said that? I don't think I have. Here's more of the Prime Minister.
I chose my summit for my first visit as Prime Minister to Asia because the Canada-ASEAN relationship is full of potential. This is a region of nearly 700 million consumers with a market worth over $5 trillion. It's already Canada's second largest trading partner with over $260 billion in two-way merchandise trade alone. Yet, even at those levels, it still only represents about 10% of our exports. To build those exports, to double our non-U.S. exports, our government is working to strike a series of new trade deals, including here in the Indo-Pacific. In the past few months, we've signed new agreements with the United Arab Emirates in artificial intelligence, with the European Union in defense and broader trade, with Germany in critical minerals, with Mexico in agri-food. We signed a free trade deal with Ecuador that reduces or eliminates tariffs on the majority of Canadian exports. And last month, in Ottawa, we concluded a historic free trade agreement with Indonesia, Canada's first bilateral free trade agreement with an ASEAN nation. This week in Kuala Lumpur, we agreed to accelerate progress on a new Canada-ASEAN free trade agreement, targeting completion of that agreement next year. Yesterday, I met with the Prime Ministers of Laos and Vietnam, as well as the President of the Philippines, to move those talks forward. Now, that deal would add about $1.5 billion to our economy, giving Canadian workers and businesses greater access to this fast-growing market. In fact, probably, arguably, the fastest-growing market in the world. And would create jobs for Canadian workers in sectors ranging from critical minerals to clean tech, agri-food, aerospace, and advanced manufacturing, all while lowering prices for Canadian consumers on goods like electronics and clothing.
Okay, I guess we're kind of getting somewhere. Our prices will go down on electronics and clothing, he says, on a deal that won't even be signed until next year, and God knows when it's going to come into effect, and that's assuming we need electronics or clothes from Indonesia specifically. I feel like this is all just smoke and mirrors. I feel like they're all over there having a great time. This was a great distraction. Get Carney out of Canada right now while all the heat is on. He doesn't have to face Pierre Poilievre in the House of Commons. Get him over on a junket. Make him look prime ministerial. Make it seem like we're doing a lot of work over there and really trying to diversify our trade relations. Even if every single one of these trade negotiations works out, and we do end up with free trade with just about the entire world except for America, we still haven't answered the question of how we're going to get this stuff there. Those critical minerals that he talked about mining, how are we going to get them over to Vietnam? Are we going to build a rail corridor out to the West Coast? Are we going to build pipelines? How are we going to do it? Because right now it seems like those deals are so far away from impacting people's lives, and people need help right now. Like right now in Canada, the middle class is on life support. And all this stuff that the Prime Minister is talking about, it kind of adds to the narrative that he doesn't get how time sensitive this is and how bad things are for the middle class. People really need help. And I'm not sure that this, I don't know, free trade deal with Indonesia is really going to be the straw that broke the camel's back and put us back on the path to prosperity. It just doesn't seem that way to me.
In addition, President Marcos of the Philippines and I agreed yesterday to launch talks on a new free trade agreement between our two nations, again with the goal of concluding that agreement next year. This week, we also made significant progress on energy. Today, Canada and Malaysia signed a letter of intent to deepen investment in liquefied natural gas.
I'm going to stop it. Letter of intent means nothing. It really doesn't. We have a ton of letters of intent out there right now with various Canadian provinces to take down the interprovincial trade barriers. Letters of intent mean nothing. And do you need proof of that? Go to the LCBO in Ontario and try and buy BC wine. They don't mean anything. We want deals. And you know what? No deal could trump, so to speak, pardon the pun, no deal that we sign over there could trump a deal being done with America. I've heard from a lot of people that we were close. We were very, very close until that ad started running, and until we kept that ad running, and until Doug Ford did a stunt with Gavin Newsom, and until Mark Carney went into his comedy routine over there in Malaysia. I don't know if that deal can be salvaged now. It's going to depend on Trump and how mad he is and what we're going to do to try and fix this. And I'm not sure that we're trying to fix it. Here's a little bit more of Prime Minister Carney. Let's do the Q&A where he gets asked point blank about President Trump.
President Trump says he's canceled these trade talks because he's upset about the Ontario government ad. We've heard from the Business Council of Canada and even some of President Trump's own advisors who suggest the frustration with Canada runs deeper. So is this about the ads or is this about something else?
Well, look, as I say, and there were a series of very detailed, very specific, very comprehensive discussions, negotiations on the areas I just listed to in response to the previous question, up until the point of those ads running. First point. Second point, I would suggest you take the president at his word for his reason. And that is the reason why, from the perspective of the federal government, which I'm responsible, we stand ready to pick up on those discussions when the United States wishes to pick up on those discussions. So those in the room, those exchanging term sheets, those having the discussions about specific areas where we can make mutual progress to the benefit of workers and businesses and communities in our respective countries had been making progress. Those ads came. The president had the reactions which you have seen, made the decisions that he has made, which, you know, those are his decisions to take, and we're in the situation we're in.
I don't know if he doesn't know what to say or if he's trying to figure out how not to smooth this over, but nothing there was conciliatory. Nothing there was an apology or an olive branch or anything to the president. Is there anything to my theory that they don't want a deal? Like, now that you've heard what you've heard in this episode, you've heard the president in his words, you've heard Mark Carney in his, and you think about my theory, Carney and Doug Ford both got elected this past spring by making Donald Trump the bad guy. We can't get them reelected if things are going great with America, is the theory. They need Canadians mad at Donald Trump in order for them to get reelected. And there's every reason to think Mark Carney is ready to call an election. It would happen in December. He would call the election in the next week or two. Is there anything to that? Could you see that? Does it seem or sound familiar based on what we saw in the spring? Maybe they don't want a deal. Maybe we were getting too close to a deal and we had to blow it up. I'm not the only one who feels this way. There's a lot of pundits on television. There is a lot of regular folks, just like you, that have thought about this and analyzed it, and you can't really come to any other conclusion other than we're trying, and we have been trying, to sabotage these trade talks. The UK had a trade deal done in what, a week? 10 days? And it's peace. Everybody's happy. The UK and America, best of friends, they say. We've been at this for 8 months and still don't have a deal. Is it possible we're the problem and we're not trying that hard to get a deal? If we get a deal, it's bad for our current politicians because then they've got to start talking about domestic issues again. You know, if we don't have this Donald Trump trade war for Doug Ford to focus on with his Protect Ontario campaign, then maybe he's going to have to talk about hospitals. Then maybe he's going to have to talk about all of the other scandals that are brewing right now. And I don't think he wants to do it. I think he wants to be Captain Canada, pouring out Crown Royal and pissing off Donald Trump. And I think he likes the attention, too, on some level anyway. Here is another question for Prime Minister Carney.
Judy Trin with CTV News. Donald Trump says he doesn't want to see you at all at APEC. Has the Canadian government given any consideration to the possibility that he doesn't want to negotiate, and do you have a contingency plan for that?
We have lots of, yes. The short answer is yes. To your follow-up, no, I'm not about to detail those contingency plans. But I will go to the big, obvious plan that is there in plain sight and will be further detailed in the budget on November 4th. And we have been saying this for months. I said this before I was elected. Emphasize the importance of us giving ourselves far more than any foreign government could take away, whatever the trading environment. And that's to build at home and to build strong at home. And we intend to unleash hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars of investment right here at home. Well, not right here, but metaphorically there at home in Canada while we're building these partnerships.
Less than a month ago, you were at the White House. You seemed very cordial, friendly with President Trump. The two of you were joking. You said you were going to walk away with a good deal. He said that we would be very happy. Is the U.S. toying with Canada? And how did your relationship with Donald Trump go south so fast?
It's a question for him.
Next question.
Yeah.
Wow. We're not even trying. We're not even trying to smooth this over. I don't know where this is going, but it seems like every clip I hear comes right back to the same thing. We don't want a trade deal. We don't want to work this out with America, because if we do, the distraction is gone and people here have got to start being accountable to the Canadian people for what's going on in this country. I think that's where I'm going to leave it for today. Good way to start off the week. Lots of back and forth between Trump and Carney there, and the story is still being written. I think that this is going to be a real interesting couple of weeks. I really do think that as we get close to the budget next week, that's going to be very, very telling. That's when we're going to find out if we're going to be having a December election. And if we do, game on. I have a feeling Canadians' moods have changed a bit in the last few months. And I think Canadians are sick and tired of getting screwed around. We want a little bit of stability. We want a deal. We want to get back to our lives and focusing on other things. Right now, it seems like a big back and forth game that isn't going anywhere, and it's just taking up way too much of the media cycle. I also think Canadians are having a little bit of buyer's regret, too. We were very, very misled during the federal election campaign.
And to put an exclamation mark on it, last week, once again, Donald Trump imposed massive tariffs on the world. This time, he skipped Canada. We got the best of a series of bad deals. But he can handle them. We can handle them. We are going to handle them. We are going to handle them. We can handle him. We can handle Donald Trump. That's what he misses, and I'm going to go into that.
We can handle him. That's what he said. We can handle him. And the crowd went nuts. They need that again. They're trying to get that again so that every time they make it seem like they're standing up to Donald Trump, it gets more people donating to them and getting ready to line up behind them and vote for them. Will Canadians fall for that again? It is October the 27th, and we do not have a deal. Let's see what the rest of the week brings, though. Tomorrow, brand new episode of Scott Fox After 9. Wednesday, it looks like I'll be doing a silent date update. And if it doesn't happen Wednesday, it'll only be just because there's so many other things going on in the world. Either way, Wednesday, Thursday at the latest, there is going to be a silent date update episode. Anna is going to come in and join me for that, and it's going to be a great week. If you haven't already, hit the subscribe button and you will get daily episodes as I upload them. Friends, enjoy your day. Go Jays, go. I'll catch you right back here tomorrow.